First, I'm Armanda Famiglietti. Wouldn't it be great to go to school in a ridicule-free zone, a zone without bullies, so that a child could learn without worrying about daily physical or verbal abuse? Well, the organization I'm featuring tonight, Operation Respect, has been making safe places for children in school for 20 years. And I'm so happy to have its education director with me tonight, Mark Weiss. Mark, welcome to Locally Sourced.
Thank you.
You're a local guy, right?
I am a local guy.
Because Operation Respect is international?
It's international.
Okay, tell me
the story. Made it all over the world. We started out 20 years ago with a song. The song is called "Don't Laugh at Me." It was written by Steve Seskin and Peter Yarrow's daughter, and I'll have to explain some of these things. Peter is the Peter from Peter, Paul, and Mary, who were together for 50 years, and played a role in the world. I mean, they sang at the March on Washington in 1963. If I had
They're icons.
They really are, well known. And Peter wrote Puff the Magic Dragon, which if you haven't heard of anything else.
There's Peter Yarrow,
There he is. There's my man. He's still plugging along. He was 80 years old on May 31st, and that hasn't stopped him. And you wouldn't even think so. Yep, just fantastic. So his daughter Bethany found a song called "Don't Laugh at Me" at the Kerrville Folk Festival. Steve was singing it. The chorus goes, "Don't laugh at me, don't call me names, don't get your pleasure from my pain." And the verses are little kids saying, "I'm a little boy with glasses, the one they call a geek, a little girl who never smiles because I have braces on my teeth, and I know how it feels to cry myself to sleep." And Peter, Paul, and Mary loved the song. They cried, of course. We all cry when we hear it.
And they recorded it,
And they did. But educationally, they sang it at the National Association of Elementary School Principals, and 6,000 principals heard that song, and they came up to Peter and the group.
And this is 20
years ago. And they said, "Give us the song, but give us something to go with the song. What are we going to do? Play a song, and then what will happen?" And Peter came back and created a curriculum called the "Don't Laugh at Me" curriculum, and then started to put it out there. And I had been a school principal for 20 years in New York City. I started the first alternative high school in the Bronx in 1979, and I started a New Visions 6th grade through 12th grade school in Manhattan. And I was about to look for something new, and soon after Peter started, he was looking for somebody to do the work that I do, which is how do you take this and offer it to schools? And so we got together, and we've been together now for 16 years or more now, 17 years, doing this work all over the world. So starting from me in New York City, but then all over the United States with a curriculum and a song. And then I've been to Hong Kong 6 times. I've been to Israel, the West Bank, Ukraine, where
So bullying is worldwide.
Bullying is worldwide. It's just right. It's about, we have a definition we call, the definition is the acronym PAIN. It's about power, being aggressive, it's intentional, and it's repetitive or numerous. So PAIN is kind of and it's different from conflict because you can. It's not something you can resolve the way you can resolve. Conflict is natural in human beings. We can resolve a conflict. But if somebody has more power than another person and keeps going at it to that other person, the rest of us have to figure out, the bystanders have to look at it and say, we got to make this stop.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to teach teachers how to teach kids, and in workshops that I do all over the world, and that's what we've been doing ever since we started this.
Well, it's terrific work. So
thank you
so much. So let's get more nitty gritty about the curriculum. There are 4 themes. Tell us what that entails.
So in the wisdom of the folks who put it together.
And who are these wisdom people?
It started with a group that was then called Educators for Social Responsibility. They were in 2 places, in Massachusetts and New York. And Peter went to them. He knew who they were, and he said, I want to put this curriculum together so we can give it away to principals free of charge. And then he also got together with Charlotte Frank, who was at McGraw-Hill at that time, an educator, and she said, we can do that with you, and we can make sure that if a teacher writes to us about and asks for the curriculum, we'll send it. And they did.
Free of charge.
Free of charge. And now it's on the web, of course, so you don't need
Just
hard copy
download it.
anymore. You can download it
Right.
anytime
right.
you want. And the themes are around 4 pretty essential themes to how we build community in schools. So stopping bullying is a broader work. It's beyond bullying. It's how do we create a space where people feel safe?
Yeah.
That's really what it is. And so the 4 themes: expressing feelings. So we now call this work social and emotional learning. How do people have feelings and then regulate their feelings? So if somebody's doing the bullying, if I feel like I want to bully somebody, how can I sort of reflect on that and regulate that? So that first theme is about this whole idea of regulation. We have partners, and I
So
have
sort of think first.
exactly.
You sure
And
you want to
stop
do this?
yourself from being triggered. I mean, for those of us who are adults, someone cutting you off in your car is like a big one.
Let me stop you
Sure,
for a minute.
sure.
Do bullies know they're bullies?
That's a great
That's a
question.
stumper,
I don't
eh?
think they're doing. I don't think they think they're necessarily doing anything wrong, because one of the things that comes to my mind right away, I don't always say it this way, is people say, "But that's how I feel." But how you feel isn't the way you can.
Express.
That it's acceptable or ethical or good to act the way that you can't express it, right? Because it's wrong, So how you feel is not good enough. But the people who are doing the bullying say, "I can't help it," or I just feel like doing it, or so they don't actually, and they don't always. I guess we all have a range of empathy in us. So I would say a bully has less empathy. I mean, it's not something to judge someone about. It's something to connect with them about, especially a young person, because it's our belief that bullies can change. At 9 years old, 10 years old, but then as it goes on and no one's created this space where we all agree that you shouldn't act that way, then it changes easily.
Right,
and then
okay.
you become an adult bully.
I interrupted you, so keep going with the curriculum.
So expressing feelings, and I would just use, as some friends I have at Yale University, it's called the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, have an acronym they use for their way of looking at social and emotional learning, and it's RULER. And the letters of RULER are recognize your feelings, understand them, label them, express them, and regulate them. And they have tools that they use. One's called a meta moment, and it's the moment when you're triggered to be, let's say, very angry. They say you should stop, and you should maybe take a breath or whatever, or just realize that you're being triggered very briefly.
But I have trouble with that as an adult.
We do. We all do. I love this work because I work with adults too, and we talk about how this happens. And then the piece they've added that I love is think about who your best self is. I used that yesterday with a friend of mine. He was flipping out. He called me from Texas. He said, I need some help. What am I going to do about this? And I said, be your best self, because you're doing great stuff, but you're in a difficult situation. So that RULER thing really, and the meta moment is really helpful. I look for all of these tools, and I try to bring them to whatever workshop
so people
or
get it.
situation. Theme 1. Theme 2 is building community. So how do we have some agreement about how we're going to treat each other would be an activity.
Okay.
And we have a bunch of those. It's an introduction to the work, by the way, our curriculum. And then if you only did that, it wouldn't be enough. So you got to reach out to other places and other ways of doing this teaching. Building community.
It's not a one-day thing.
It's not. It's a lifelong.
It's got to be,
I mean, luckily I have something I can spend my life doing because I have nothing else to do.
Well, I mean, for the teachers in the
I get it. Yeah.
the
exactly.
schools, it's sort of a daily practice.
It is, and we hope that it is. I mean, there are other organizations that one of them created something called morning meeting. If teachers are listening to this, they'll know, we have morning meeting. Okay. Morning meetings when the kids get together and have a meeting and talk about what's going on in their classroom.
Oh, okay.
So second theme, building community. Third theme, resolving conflict creatively. And there are ways of doing that so that people who are not getting along we can help them do that. And locally, we've set up a peer mediation center at Putnam Valley High School. We help them do it, and they have young people who actually help other young people resolve conflict with each other.
Peer-to-peer works
Peer-to-peer.
really well.
It is great. It powers the kids, and it's terrific. And the fourth one is diversity. It's the idea that we have a lot of differences. We come from different backgrounds. We have different identities, multiple identities about who we are, and we need to share that, and we need to know each other's stories, and we need to build strength amidst that diversity, and we're not always encouraged to do that. So that's the work.
So you say you have done something in Putnam Valley High School.
Yes.
Any other schools in Putnam?
In Westchester County, we've done Somers. I've done some work in Somers.
Practically
and it's really nearby, and I love that work that we did. And then I'll go, I talk to a lot of people, and I go to a lot of places. So
we have a couple of photos of you in action. So
how old was I?
You look pretty much the same, I'd say. What's going on here?
There we go. A group of kids meeting in a school, and I think
I'm in. Do you have a guitar on you, or what is that?
Is that my Martin backpacker? Yeah, probably. I think so, or somebody's guitar that I borrowed. So I say, Peter Yarrow can sing for the world. He's everywhere and goes everywhere, and he's so wonderfully popular. But I get up to about the third or fourth grade, maybe a little older, and I use the music to bring us together.
You
and
think
I
those
start
are
out
fourth graders. About how age?
I would say maybe fourth graders in Las Vegas, I think. That looks familiar. Yeah, and these are older kids.
Well, they're all Asian. So was this a trip to Hong Kong? Or?
This is Japan, actually.
Oh, Japan.
Yeah. So I've been, and we did some really wonderful work in Tokyo with a group that came together.
Yeah. Well, I see,
with the same curriculum.
A baby in that picture. So how young are you?
Well, the babies are there because their parents are there.
Oh, okay.
So
your curriculum involves the teachers, the kids, and the parents sometimes.
It can, yes. Well, some of those could have been organizers who also were parents of that.
So let's leave this photo on for a while.
Okay, sure.
I really like this photo. It's got your logo, Operation Respect, and then it has a few other signs.
Right.
And tell us what those signs mean.
You got it. So the don't laugh. I see it says "Don't laugh at me."
It says no dissing here.
No, right. So that would be disrespect. The way people ask me what is the essence of what you do, and I would say all of these revolve around the idea that I feel, and I hope we feel, that every child should feel safe when they're in school. And
they can learn and not worry about what the next thing that's going to
happen to them.
And
I get a tear in my eye when I hear that, because I see so many kids and hear about so many and get calls all the time about my child doesn't want to go to school. And we had a statistic a while back, 160,000 students stay home from school every day.
Yeah, I had a couple of those tummy aches when I was a kid. What is Put Up Peace Place?
So in the building community section, there's the creation of something we call a peace place, which is instead of if somebody's acting out, a child is acting out and can't seem to kind of gain control, the kids themselves create a peace place in the room, in the classroom. And they actually...
A little corner of the classroom or something.
Exactly. So we ask the question, of adults even, when you need a place where you need to be peaceful, what is that? What are the trait? What aspects of do they have? What kind of a place is that? And then I'll ask the question: for how many of you would that be a place near water? And about half of them raise their hand. So often a peace place will have a brook coming down,
nice.
Or something with water.
So how? It's been 20 years. Don't laugh at me, and that's that song again.
That's that
and the
song.
name of the curriculum.
There it is, and sometimes I do that. I hand out some just art, magic markers and paper and crayons and whatever, and because it's so much more powerful when young people express what it is you're trying to, if you will, get them to express, or encourage them to express. And so I just love when kids do that.
Okay. Yeah. So what about effectiveness? You've been around for 20 years. How do you know what you do is effective?
The big work that we do is done by beyond what we offer. We consider what we do an introduction or an energizer for this work, which has to take place in one way or another.
Yeah.
Maybe you just started it, or maybe you're thinking about doing it. So we have evidence that people like what we do, and they feel encouraged by it, and they go on to do more of it. That's really the test for us. I often ask if Peter, Paul, and Mary hadn't sung at the March on Washington because we didn't have evidence that it was effective, would we say, oh, well, we don't need any singers? So we're that inspiration that gets people to commit themselves to doing it.
The success of the program is an indicator of how effective it must be. Right?
Yes, and then the elements of the program, like social and emotional learning, there's a lot of evidence that says if you do social and emotional learning in the classroom, kids are going to achieve better. And so one of the things some people wouldn't accept the fact that if we all get along, that's okay, that's enough. They say, but what about the kids learning? So it turns out kids learn better. Kids learn better when they're happier and connected and feel safe and want to go to school. Hello.
Yeah.
May I say?
So what about the teachers? I have an anecdote. This is a one-off. It's just personal to me. But I was with some friends of a friend, and one of the friends of the friend, someone I really didn't know, was a teacher. And I was listening to her talking about the hardships of teaching. And one of them was that parents come to you and say, my kid is being bullied. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
And she said, and I couldn't believe it when she said it, she said, well, I have to tell them the usual stuff, but what I really want to say is your kid's a loser. And your kid is always going to be a loser. And there really isn't anything I or the school can do about it. And that's the way it is, lady. And I was so shocked that a teacher would feel this way and feel comfortable even expressing it among friends. And so I thought, wow, with teachers like that, how are you going to get ahead if you're the one being bullied? I mean, is that a problem? Have you heard that before?
Yeah, I hear it, something like that, or something that shocks me on the one hand in just about every workshop I do.
Wow.
On the one hand, and then on the other hand.
So you educate teachers as well, I hope, to try to be more compassionate and empathetic towards their students.
What I ask for sometimes it happens at the very beginning where a teacher will say, I don't know, when I was growing up, some kid tried to pick on me and I just punched him right in the nose and it never happened again. I don't see why we're sitting here and having this workshop.
Okay.
And I say, well, I have a lot of ways of looking at this, but one of
I'm guessing that's not in the curriculum.
That's not, right. But everybody, I tell them that it happens a lot. I hear that a lot. And so I accept that as a tool for stopping bullying if you think that would work in a particular situation. But we need a lot of tools to deal with big problems. So the tools I'm going to give you, I hope, are more effective in some cases than others. So that it's more about, I hear you, leave that where it is, and let's go on and do, and do this other work, because the big work really seems to work to me.
Right. Do you know if when teachers are in training that they have any training about classroom control, and what do you do with the bully and the kid who's getting bullied? I would think that'd be really important, since it seems to be, historically a historic problem among children in a classroom.
The way I think about that question is it takes 5 years to become maybe a veteran teacher. If any teachers are watching, so training to be a teacher is like the beginning of getting ready to be a teacher. Apprenticeship is something that should happen more than it does. And then actually developing your craft more and more over time has to continue until you're really better at it. And my daughter's a teacher. She's a kindergarten teacher. And we talk all the time about teaching. And just opening with the question, how's your class this year? and it takes off from there. And she's been doing it a long, long time, but every year there are new challenges.
Well, speaking of teachers and parents, because I'm sure of that poor woman who goes to the teacher and says, my child's being bullied, what are you going to do about it? You have lots of great resources on your website.
We do.
And you're a nonprofit, right? So you depend on grants and donations, and you don't charge for your curriculum.
Correct.
Do you charge when you make an appearance?
We do, yeah. But not, I mean, we would
not
go.
Not much, right?
Not much, and also we kind of pick and choose. We're sort of like the doctor that says, if you can't afford me, I'm still going to help you, because that's why you went to medical school.
Like those doctors.
Right, yeah.
What's the best way to support your organization?
Great to make a donation. If you can go online and check that out.
And on your Facebook page.
And then we have events and
right?
things that come up that people can attend.
Any coming up soon or this year?
We'll have, in December, we'll have a kind of gathering so people really express an initial interest in supporting us. It wouldn't be that public. Sometimes we have a big public gathering, but I don't think we have one coming up right away. So I'll just go for, if you just connect with us online, we'll get in touch, back in touch.
On your website, you also have a blog, and I noticed it looks like you're doing maybe a special program with New York City schools.
Yes, we're a partner, one of 4 partner organizations that does a project called Respect for All. In New York City public schools. And every school has a person who's responsible for that, and we're one of the training organizations that trains the people who are the liaisons to the Respect for All project. We've been selected to do that, so that keeps me really busy.
Really busy.
You know?
Okay, no wonder you don't know what's going on at Tompkins Corners.
That's right, exactly.
All right, and if anyone wonders what I mean by that, you'll have to
tune
into another show, a previous show.
Yeah.
So you have statistics on your website as well, and they're pretty shocking. And I think the bullying is referred to as an epidemic in the country. So has bullying gotten worse in the last 20 years since you started?
It's persistent. It's up and down. Some places are better than others and consistently better because they are really committed to doing the work. Some places fall back and maybe forget about what it is they're doing or just hit a rough road. So it's not something that is going to necessarily go away, but we can make a lot of progress when we are intentional about it, and that's we try to raise that consciousness.
Okay. Well, I would think that there's cyberbullying.
Exactly.
Does your curriculum address cyberbullying?
We do. It's a subset of bullying.
It's been reported that tweens and teens kill themselves. They take their own lives because of how hard their life is being made by other peers through cyberbullying and bullying at school. That's shocking.
I would just say we're wary that because word, which has the word cause in it.
Okay, right.
The direct link between bullying and suicide is not necessarily a contributing cause.
Contributing factor, okay.
Could be.
Okay.
But somebody who commits suicide has deeper issues
going on.
And so we want to do everything to be open to, and so often a young person commits suicide, and even the parents say, "I just had no idea," and we stand a little far back and say that can't be possible. But I'm more and more having studied and knowing people who've lost their kids, and I talk to them a lot, so I know that it happens, and you tried everything you could, and I know them as the people, as good parents, as committed parents who knew their kid was troubled. So it's and often suicide's about depression. Right. So where does depression come from? And it doesn't just come from. Okay. We want to stop bullying, but I don't want to blame everything on bullying and make that sound so horrifying.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. So the bullying is humiliating, and I would say it wasn't that likely that children always go home and tell their parents what a hard time they're having at school, because it's embarrassing to be the one who's being picked on. Do you address that in your curriculum?
We address it in the conversation. This is a great conversation. You're absolutely right. With all that I do, I would say even in my own family, there are moments when I have 3 adult daughters and 4 granddaughters, and so over time, there are struggles in going to school and what's happening, and there's loneliness. I remember I went to a huge high school, Brooklyn Tech High School in Brooklyn, New York, with 5,000 kids, and I remember the loneliness of first going there and having some students who actually welcome me, which was wonderful. So there's good news that can happen. Yeah. But the other side is, I often say to parents, some parents say, I don't want to be my kid's friend. And I hear that because I want to be their parent and I have to keep them in line, kind of that idea. But I think there are 14-year-olds or 15-year-olds or 10-year-olds kids who, for periods of time, they don't have friends for a moment in time. I think at that time, a parent should say, "What are you doing this weekend? Let's go to the movies," or I think we can be friends in our families and that it'll get our young people through some rough times that every child has. Think back. Did you ever have a rough spot where you felt like nobody was paying attention to you?
Right now. No.
Exactly.
I do not want to joke about this subject, but humor is always important.
Yeah.
So we're almost out of time, and I wanted to end on a hopeful note, if that's possible. Can you give me a hopeful note about bullying? Will we ever get rid of it? It sounds like it's just part of growing up, and it's the bad part.
We can make tremendous progress. I don't know, but get rid of it is that's a tall order. But the work that we do changes lives and can change communities. I should say that I was saying Peter Yarrow is still very active. He brought a group of singer-songwriters to Parkland, Florida, where there was that horrible massacre and where the kids became so involved in trying to change the world, and they wrote songs together, and it was really special. So there's a healing that can go on. And they wrote an amazing song that I hope comes out one of these days. It's called "Song of the Silent," and it's for the kids who they lost, but with hope. I mean, it's a song of hope because it says we're going to do something about this in your name.
Yeah.
You know,
Those Parkland kids are so phenomenal.
They are
phenomenal, and so are you. And so is Operation Respect. And I wish you well in everything that you do and for all the good work that you do and your organization and Peter Yarrow and your board. And thanks so much for coming on Locally Sourced.
I love that you're making community in this little world of ours.
Oh, thank you.
In our county. Thank you.
And thanks to the volunteer crew who come out and do the same thing. And to everyone who watches.